The EduTech guys present a conversation from our live coverage of FETC in Orlando, Florida on Tuesday, January 23rd, 2018. Enjoy the program.
Okay, great. Nice to meet you guys. My
Good to
name is
meet you.
Jen Park, and I'm from Southern California. I'm an assistive technology coordinator. So I basically work with kids with special needs across 5 different districts, providing assistive technology related services.
Awesome.
And evaluations.
Cool.
Awesome,
What brings you to FETC?
Well, I'm actually presenting on a workshop and a poster session.
Oh, cool.
Kind of related to special ed, but just the other extreme. So in my former life, I was a special ed teacher working with kids with physical and health disabilities, in addition to working with GATE students, so gifted and talented students, which I consider to be just on the other opposite end of the special ed spectrum.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
yes.
kind of mirroring those two, what I did a lot, especially in this digital technology age, was to bring digital citizenship into the classrooms during GATE sessions.
Oh, yeah.
And finding out how to bridge that gap utilizing our 21st century tools.
Oh, cool.
So that's kind of what I was doing. And last year I presented here. And then this year they had asked me to submit a proposal. So I did. And here I am again.
Hey, that's awesome.
So when is your session? Have you done it today?
No, not yet. I actually came from a workshop clear across the convention center.
Yeah.
But,
3 miles that way? Yeah.
Yes,
Yes,
exactly.
yes.
And they wouldn't let me cut across here, which would have saved me a lot more steps, but
Yep.
that's all right. My workshop is on Thursday from 4 to 6 p.m., and that one is called Differentiated Instruction through Universal Designs for Learning in AR, VR, and other personalized learning tools.
Yeah.
And then my poster session is going to be Code, Fearful of the 4-Letter Word, because that's also another up-and-coming area of interest.
Yes.
That's
yes,
awesome.
Very much
Okay, so let's talk about your first one, differentiate instruction using AR and VR.
Yes.
Tell me, summarize it for me.
I think for me, what really drew me into this was working with kids, particularly my area of specialty is working with kids with physical and health disabilities. And a lot of the times, our students can't necessarily go outside to the environment, or they're on home hospital teaching. And I thought, how do we bring in education to them, make it accessible to them? And using AR, I feel like, is a better tool to bridge the gap, because we're taking something that's in reality and augmenting that through a device that's readily now more so available than before. Versus VR, where you're having to wear a headset, or you're totally immersed in, for some of our students that have that, brain spatial inability.
It freaks
that
me
was
out.
too
I'm gonna
much.
be honest
Yes,
with you.
absolutely. So I thought AR is a good step to kind of dip your toes in, and then from there move into VR. So I do talk about that a little bit, and then now they're talking about MR, so mixed reality, which is what Microsoft's HoloLenses are, and the whole AI and stuff like that. But I think that's why that drew me to that, and kind of the whole idea behind Universal Design for Learning. I feel like AR does that really well. And so talking about how do I bring that into a classroom? So you have kids with special needs, all different areas, visual impairments, hearing impairments, physical and health impairments. What kinds of tools can we bring in? How do we make learning fun and exciting for them as well?
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah,
Isn't it great
absolutely.
how technology-wise, I've said it all day and I say it all the time, it's finally caught up with what we need in education.
Absolutely.
We don't have to have this giant. I remember I've been in tech a long time, and for my SPED departments, my classrooms, big, Kurzweil systems for this, just massive systems, and now we're down to a set of headphones and an iPad, or a tablet, and a set of headphones, or whatever we need to make it happen. Wow.
Right.
And AR does lend itself really well to
and it's so
providing that.
inexpensive. That's what I feel like. And I taught junior high, so my 6th, 7th, and 8th graders, a big thing with them was the cool factor.
Yeah.
So if it's not cool, it doesn't look cool, my friends are using it, then I'll use it. If not, doesn't matter what it is. So that's always been kind of my driving force is, you know what, everybody else in the school is using it, regardless of their ability.
Yeah.
So let's have you try it too. So
Yeah. Equity-wise, it's the same thing.
Yes.
I'm just like everyone else,
Yes.
and that's true, and that's a really big deal with our special ed students.
Absolutely.
It really is, making them feel like I'm just inclusive as everyone else. Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah.
I would love to come to that session, but we're swamped, so I can't.
Yes, I know.
So, all right. So let's talk about code. The
Yes.
the
Yeah, the
four-letter
four-letter
word.
Yes. So what kind of got me interested in that is our students are also mainstreamed into our general ed population of classrooms. And with the whole STEM and STEAM curriculum going on, coding has been taken off big time with our general ed students. Well, our kids with cognitive disabilities, they don't necessarily or might be fearful of that. Yet if you ask them what they want to be, they might say, I want to be a gamer, or I want to develop games. Well, then I started looking into, well, what kinds of tools are out there? And really, can we make it kind of watered down or simplified?
Sure.
And when you look at coding, really, it goes down to just knowing 4 directions. That's how simple it can be.
Right.
So I thought, well, if we can teach the kids how do you know left, right, up, and down, then we can act that out in role play, which is essentially what you're doing in coding, except you're just doing it on a computer screen. So utilizing 2 free available resources. So I did code.org's curriculum, great curriculum, because there was a lot of hands-on experience, which my special ed students were able to partake in, and then my gen ed students were able to take the language part of it, and so that was a great marriage, kind of. So using code.org's resources, and then also using Google CS First. Their use of availability again as well. So some of my students, so I try to do a blending of both, which I think is a kind of a difficult task in the amount of time that I had, but I wanted them to be exposed to as much as they can. And some of my students thrived really well, understood code, and they went off with it. Some of my other students, that was a little too simple, so they liked the whole Google CS. So I kind of was able to bring in, I feel like, 2 different entities and then really present it as a facilitator for the students to be able to choose. And that, I think, was a great bonus.
So when you designed the curriculum, you had
Yes.
to do it for both. Did you find that it melded itself together and it kind of crossed both
It did. So
between your gen ed kids and your special ed
yes,
kids?
so what my students had to do was, because regardless of all of this technology, I feel like a missing component is kind of digital citizenship. And so I thought, what if that was the platform? So my mission for the students was, you have to create a public service announcement, right, in digital citizenship. So we took a lot of free, so Common Sense Media has lots of great resources available, and we used part of their portal, which was the NS Teens workshop curriculum, all, again, free and available. We logged on, they learned all about different areas of digital citizenship, and then we brought that, they had to make a public service announcement, and then in conjunction with that, they had to learn some coding language. So they kind of had a, I don't want to say thematic project, but in essence, that's what it was. And so then in order to be able to create that kind of project, they had to learn from each other. And I think really the strongest point was doing that whole digital citizenship, really kind of laid that foundation, took away the whole disability ability factor, and everybody was all the same. And then from there we had that common language, and we did, because the gate sessions were 4-week sessions, we did 2 weeks with Google and 2 weeks with code.org, kind of mirrored the two. And then at the end they kind of did like a, which one did I prefer and what did I learn from it kind of experience, because I think it's always good to hear back from the students instead of me dictating from as a teacher, this is what it is and this is the way it goes. So they really felt ownership.
And that's exactly what I was just going to say. They take ownership in what they did, and it forces them to analyze their own learning, and evaluate their own learning. Which, what did not, and it's not just the, well, I like to Google better. Well, that's great, but what made Google better for you? Why did you like it? What didn't you like about the other? And so they have to analyze all that. So you're getting into those deeper critical thinking, avenues, and my guess is they don't think of it that way. We do, because we're all talking pedagogy and also but they're like, okay, well, so I have to tell you why, and I have to stop and figure out why. I have to analyze why I like this, why I didn't like this, what worked for me here, what didn't work for me there. That's awesome.
And I think my biggest challenge as the quote-unquote educator was that I had to kind of take on the role of a facilitator and a coach. Meaning when they came to me to ask me the problem solving, how do you do this, or why doesn't this work, I would so easily before kind of say, oh, this is what you did wrong and let me find it for you. Whereas I had to take a step back, bite my tongue and say, why don't you figure it out? Or ask a neighbor. And that was the hardest thing. But after, and I know at first it was very frustrating for the students. So that, well, why can't you just tell me the answer? And then after a while it was like, well, let me ask so-and-so and such in groups. And so then there was the whole active learning where really I was able to take that back seat that was the best thing ever.
Yeah,
that's cool.
And so, did you find that hard to do? Did you find that hard to release those reins?
Like
yes.
How you transformed yourself?
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean,
because I was in the classroom for 10 years before I came out and was more of a facilitator role. But that was the first. It's just so easy for me to just step right in and try to be that kind of head of the class or the person that knows it all, that can dictate the way that it's supposed to flow. That was a great learning experience. Many times I had to just kind of do the count to 3 before you talk. I had to do that. So I did that quite a few times in the beginning. And then thereafter, I think it was the tone that the students knew was, well, before I go and ask Miss Park how to do this, let me ask such and such. And then I always had that kind of 3 before me rule. So you ask 3 other people or 3 other groups, and then if you don't get it, then I can come and help you. But I would say one of the things that I did change was before, when they would come and ask me, I would kind of be so easy to, oh, here's the layout and this is the way you get there.
Right.
I had to change that thinking into, well, what did you do? What else could you have done? Just asking a lot of questions where they had to do the problem solving. It's a totally different mind shift, I think.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
But I feel like that's what we need in order to get these kids prepared for, jobs that are not here today, industries that are not available today. That's what we're going to need.
Right.
We can't keep doing what we've been doing.
And there's the thing that I love about where we're sitting in the 21st century. We have a whole subset of students who were relegated to not much after public education.
Yes.
And now they can be homebound.
Yes.
And they can work.
Absolutely.
And they can have social lives.
Yes.
And they can interact. And that's a huge deal.
Absolutely.
It's like we tell you all the time, it's jobs that aren't even created yet.
That's right.
But they already actually are.
Right.
We've been there for a while. We've just now gotten to the point where we're ready to make that happen.
Yes.
So having said that, so what's in the future? Because I know someone like you're always thinking, and you've got something on your brain that you've got to try next. So what's up?
Yes, I think it's just to kind of further investigate a little more of the AR. I really want to start into the VR. If the HoloLenses become a little more affordable,
right,
then possibly that way. But it's really kind of looking at our students again and seeing the way that they're evolving and kind of what's coming down the pike. One of my kind of, I guess, my own sessions and envies that I love going to is I go to the Consumer Electronic Association show. And I go there and I see what's coming down the pike, and I'm always looking at, well, if it's out there for the general population, can I bring it in and tweak some things, make it much more attainable for our students, and then be able to create educational experiences for them. So that's always been something. So kind of looking forward, that is definitely something that I want to dabble into more, is how to continue to bridge the gap as more and more of our students are kind of more into the general education and not so much in that isolated special day classes and those kinds of things. So so I think we have to be able to kind of bridge that gap even more. And so I want to make it kind of a more creative and fun learning environment, because then maybe our students, instead of always having those supplemental and kind of always playing catch up, maybe they will bring something that's kind of on the forefront, and that will change the attitudes and minds of everybody in the classroom.
Yeah, that's exactly.
Cool.
That's awesome.
Folks want to get in touch with you. Twitter account.
Well, I'm one of those tech junkies that kind of does not like to do Twitter.
That's cool.
That's fine.
But I do have a handle. It's at Jen Park AT.
Okay.
All right.
So assistive technology.
So website?
I don't have a website yet. I am a lurker on Facebook. I've been for a long time, only because I just don't have I think it's because I'm so much involved in immersing myself with all these different kinds of equipment.
Sure.
The last thing I want to do when I go home is to tweet and
Yeah.
check Facebook and do all those things.
Yep.
But a website is up and coming. I
Awesome.
hope to do that too. But
Awesome.
thank you for putting me on responsibility.
There you go. That's right. We're calling you out now,
Yes,
man.
calling me out. Yes.
Well, it's been very exciting to meet you.
Yes. Same here.
I've learned today. And so that's you'd be surprised what we learned here, sitting and talking to so many great people.
Yes.
You're doing a great job.
Thank you so
I'm
much.
very impressed.
Yes.
And
Thank you.
some really cool stuff.
Yes, thank you so much.
Well,
Awesome.
thank you very much for
we have a
signing
little
up and
gift
sitting
for you.
down and putting up with us.
Yeah.
So for that, you get a prize.
Oh, wonderful.
You get a little tchotchke, that's right.
Great. I'm
Awesome.
So
So you've been interviewed by the EduTech guys. So
Thank you
there you
so
go.
much.
And just think
Awesome.
tomorrow they'll open up that area and we can actually cut across and we won't have to.
Yes, and we won't have to go all the way around.
All the way around.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
Then I thought I was looking you guys up on the website just to see if I knew where the location was.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't sure where, and it didn't say anywhere. So I'm thinking, where
Yes.
are they?
Yep.
Yes.
We kind of decided this morning.
Yeah, actually, that is true.
okay.
They actually had us in a different location, and so we talked to them. And we were like, "Can we be here?" And she was like, "Well, okay." So
No, actually, this
That's
is good
good.
because this is supposed to be where the people are supposed
Yeah,
to
that's
come
where
for
everybody comes through.
registration.
So,
Yes,
yeah,
yes.
it's a
we
good spot.
monitor and adjust and figure it out. So
Yep.
there you go. But
You're accessible.
that's right.
Well,
Yes.
if you see the seats open and you want to sit down and talk later,
Sure.
anytime this week, have a seat.
I would love to do that.
Awesome.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
Thank you much.
Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Hopefully, you don't have to run to your next thing. You can-
I'll have to go and prepare for
You've been listening to a recorded conversation from EduTech Guys live coverage of FETC 2018. For more information about EduTech Guys, visit edutechguys.com. And thanks for listening.